What is up, fam? Thank you so much for tuning in to So Real Sports Talk TV. My name is So Real Sunil. Over to the side of me, we have my main man, Jesse Naylor. Jesse, gotta shout you out. That new music you got for the show, fire, bro. Really the West Coast vibes that I need in my life. So I appreciate that from you, my man.
Absolutely. You said you wanted something with a little bit of hip hop in it. Figure we're both West Coast rap guys. So as soon as I heard that one, I could picture Dr. Dre rapping over it. I'm like, this is the one.
Yep. That was the one, man. It's fire. So that's gonna be the new intro from this point on. Corey S. What's up, fellas? What's up, Corey? We got a lot to talk about, my man. So stay tuned. Spy Nick Danger, go Niners. Absolutely, absolutely. So, Jesse, this is the recap show. Week 2, eked out with the win. 2-0, tied for first in the NFC West, tied for first in the NFC Conference, tied for first in the NFL. But lot to talk about, right? So let's talk about first just overall reaction to the game, man. What was like the feeling after it was over? The whistle blew. They were in championship formation. Game was over. How was Jesse feeling?
No, I felt great. The game went pretty much how I expected. I said it'd be 23-20. I thought it'd be a hard fought, low scoring game, and that's what we got. Obviously, the score was wrong, but it went pretty much like I expected. So I felt good that the Niners got a win. I definitely, Sunil, you and I, we talked a lot after week 1, and I would say it's safe to say that pretty much every 49er fan should feel much better after week 2 than they did after week 1. The corners were the big question mark coming into this game. How could they hold up? And we'll talk about them as individuals here in a little bit. But that was the big thing going into the game. And so far, so good. It didn't look so bad. The defense played really well. And I feel a lot better after this game than I did after week 1. So there's a lot to be excited about for sure if you're a Niner fan.
Hey, anytime positive, optimistic Jesse makes a, makes a visit to my show, I am happy because I am Mr. Positivity and over here. Look, we're talking about West Coast rap, man. Nipsey said it best, R.I.P. It's a marathon, right? And each week we are looking for the 49ers to get better. And I think there were definite aspects of the game that we were looking for to see if they could figure out some answers. And I think we got some answers, right? Doesn't necessarily mean there aren't more questions, but, there is progress. And last week's game was worse than this week's game, meaning these guys are getting better week after week. So that's all we could ask for. So we're going to get into some things. Let's shout out some people that have just jumped in. Jay Mango, like always. Let's get it. We will. Pinor, I'm glad to see you, man. Pinor, you're in and out, my guy. So glad to see you back. Hit the like button, you filthy animals. Thank you. John Townsend, love to hear the takes. I didn't get to watch this game. No problem, John. We got you, my friend.
Pinor has a really underrated. That's an amazing comment.
Twitter Jesse, greater than YouTube Jesse when it comes to the smoke. Yo, if you aren't already following, you might have already followed Jesse. You might have to refollow him because Twitter's doing some funny stuff on there. So go make sure you're still following Jesse because yes, Jesse has time for everybody and it's great. All right, so I just wanted to get the offensive stuff out of the way to start out. Ayuk and Sermon, we thought that it was just a week 1 thing. Maybe they got into trouble with the team. We heard some rumors about them breaking team rules. There was supposedly maybe an injury for Ayuk. Both came back. Both were still used sparingly. I think Ayuk got 2 targets, 1 catch. Sermon got 1 attempt. Unfortunately, it was like a illegal hit to the head, helmet to helmet contact, knocked him out of the game. But he did look good. I mean, he was, I think he got 8 yards on the carry. Tell me, what do you make of, Ayuk and Sermon's just minimal use in Shanahan's offense?
Yeah, so obviously we come on here, we give our instant reaction the day of the game, and as my thoughts progressed throughout the week, the Sermon thing started to make more and more sense to me. I really think Sermon was brought in to play with Trey Lance because if you look at Sermon's skill set, a lot of people thought, well, he's a big, powerful back, he should be the goal line guy, but that's not really his skill set. His skill set was he ran out of shotgun pretty much every single play when he was at Ohio State. A lot of the read option stuff, which is exactly what they're going to do with Trey. So I think that is the reason that Sermon was brought in, was to play more with Trey Lance. If Trey Lance plays, I believe Sermon gets more burn. So that one doesn't concern me so much. He did look really good on that one run. He looked actually pretty explosive. It sucks that he got hurt. It most likely looks like some sort of concussion
Right.
protocol situation. We'll see if he's able to play next week, but that was encouraging. And then Ayuk had a really nice catch. I mean, Jimmy threw a decent ball, but it was definitely high, and Ayuk made a great play on a third down catch, and looked good in that one play. But I don't know what's going on with Ayuk. That's the one that's interesting to me. That being said, I feel like he's not missing out on a lot just because outside of Debo, there's really not a lot of passing going around, right? Like
At
Debo
least
is
down the
eating up,
field.
yeah, at least down the field. And we'll talk about, Jimmy as it goes on, but yeah, there's just not a lot to go around. And so let's figure out this Ayuk thing. I think that as the season progresses, he will earn some more burn. And I would say 8 games in, Ayuk establishes himself in this offense as a full time starter. But it is a little bit worrisome that this is a guy that they traded up for and he's not getting much run. So it's something to
Yeah.
keep an eye on. But at this point, I'm not extremely worried about it just because I don't feel like they need him to ball out, at least not yet. Maybe in week 4. We'll see about that week 3, but right now it's okay.
Jason Elliott's talking about the play. Ayuk bailed Jimmy out on that play.
Yep,
It was thrown at least to a place where only Ayuk could get it and it
for
couldn't be
sure.
intercepted. And Ayuk did make a great play on the game. Earlier in the game, Jimmy threw the ball really high to Ayuk, where there was no chance for him to really catch the ball. So he got two throws towards him. Here's my thing, Jesse, and you could correct me if I'm wrong. There's going to be a time where this defense can't keep bailing out the offense, and the 49ers are going to have to play a game like they did in New Orleans in 2019 to clinch that first place seed and and outscore the other team. And the way that I see it is that in that game with New Orleans, we knew who our top three wide receivers were. It was Emmanuel Sanders, Debo, and Kendrick Bourne. I don't. If you were to ask me who are our top three wide receivers right now, Debo's definitely one by far, and then it's like who? Jawan Jennings got a touchdown this game. Last week, Sherfield got a touchdown. We all think Brandon Ayuk is the most talented out of all of them. And it seemed like Ayuk was used more, like featured more in the offense last season, even with Debo there, where they did some wide receiver screens. They just got him the ball where he could just go be electric and make some plays. He was in jet sweeps, things like that. And we're not seeing any of that. With a talent like Ayuk, you would think you might force feed him the ball just to give him an opportunity to go out there and make a play, which we know he's capable of. I mean, he had one of the most ridiculous touchdown runs after catch that we saw all season last year. So that's what I'm more worried about. Like I feel like it's more about the long play. We need these receivers to get set, and it doesn't seem like any of them are getting enough opportunities to really get a flow in this season, other than Debo. And I feel like that's going to bite us in the butt in one of these games where we need to outscore everybody, and these receivers are just not ready just because they haven't gotten the burn.
Yeah, I mean, the way that's set though with Jimmy is 2 receivers are not going to eat in this offense. I mean, Kittle hasn't even started going yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Kittle really, we thought coming into it, was the number one pass catcher out of all these players. at the very least, he's number two if Debo is what Debo has looked like the last couple of weeks. So I just don't think that there's enough for a third person. But, you talked about how they're not force feeding him the ball and getting him, some end arounds, pitches, that type of stuff. They haven't even really done that with Debo. And it's very interesting. This offense to me looks very vanilla for a Shanahan offense. There's definitely some shifts and some motions, but it just seems a little watered down. And I don't know if that's because they're just trying to install a little bit by a little bit and not show a lot. They felt like they could get through these weeks. I'm not really sure about that, but it just seems like this offense is not as dynamic pre-snap or even post-snap is what they normally would be with some of the trickerations. So we'll see how that plays out moving forward. But you're right. They've done really nothing to try to get Ayuk the ball. It's almost as if they don't view him as a primetime weapon the way that they did even last year as a rookie.
Yeah, and I agree with you, man. This offense, as far as the big play opportunities, has not shown that, and it would be kind of strange to me, like why we wouldn't at least see a little bit of it, unless there's a certain game that Kyle Shanahan has in his mind where he's just going to turn the switch on, and all of a sudden it's going to be a brand new offense. But yeah, I don't know. Obviously these guys are professionals, so they're probably all ready. I'm probably overthinking it, thinking that they need constant reps to be able to get their confidence up and things like that. But yeah, man, it's weird. Like Debo gets 8 to 10 opportunities, and the rest of the receivers get less than that combined. It kind of seems like So I just feel like at a certain point, we're going to need to see these receivers really ball out. And I just hope that them not getting much burn right now doesn't take away from their sharpness later on down, because eventually defenses are just going to, shade towards Debo, take him out of the game. And then, who's the next man up, right? As far as in Shanahan's eyes. So that's going to be interesting to see. Let's talk about the offense overall before we get specifically into Jimmy's performance. How did you feel about the offense and how they played?
Meh. That was it, right? Like, I think we have it as a separate topic, so I'm not going to go full in on Coach right now. But let's talk about Jimmy, right? Because he's the trigger man for this offense. And Jimmy was, let's look at his numbers real quick. Hold on. So
we got another topic next about Jimmy's performance.
Okay.
So
well, I will say this.
Let's do that first. And then we can talk about the overall offense. So let's go into it because it's on the tip of your tongue. Okay, how would you rate Jimmy's performance?
Jimmy was 22 of 30, 189 yards and a touchdown. Okay. On the season, he's thrown 55 passes. He's 1 for 4. So only 4 attempts outside the numbers beyond 10 yards. He's completed only one of those passes, and that was the BS luck play to Debo, where Debo came back for the ball against the Lions and took it for 79 yards and a touchdown. That's it. Jimmy cannot throw with any consistency outside the numbers beyond 10 yards. And Shanahan, by the way, doesn't trust him to do so because he's only given him 4 attempts. So this offense is going to be in a position, and we thought it could happen this week, but eventually they're going to be in a position, like you said, where they're going to have to score a lot of points. And I do not trust that a Jimmy G-led offense can outscore a Kyler Murray, a Russell Wilson, a Matt Stafford, and the likes, especially in this NFC West. And that worries the hell out of me. Jimmy, okay, so if we're grading Jimmy on a Jimmy scale, he was fine. That was an A performance. That's what Jimmy is, right? Like Jimmy is who we thought he was. He has not changed. His stripes have not changed. He is the same Jimmy Tiger we always thought that he was. So why are we expecting that he's going to do these amazing things? The one thing I will say about Jimmy is he's more mobile than what he used to be. 2017, he would roll out a lot. He was not afraid of pass rushes. 2019 and last year, he certainly was afraid. He doesn't have the brace. He's avoiding some direct hits, and he's making some plays with his legs. I do like to see that. That is certainly an upgrade for Jimmy, and it's something that he should be praised for. But to think that Jimmy is going to be this guy that is going to come out and win you games, if that's your thought, you don't know who Jimmy Garoppolo is. He is not that guy. Can he win you a game or two throughout a 17-game season? Sure. But he can also lose you a game or two throughout a 17-game season. He is a net zero quarterback, nothing more, nothing less. And that scares the hell out of me for the rest of this season because now it starts to get real.
So there's a couple of things that I think a lot of people overlook when it comes to Jimmy. There's something to be said for staying calm, cool, collected, no matter if things are going good or things are going bad. And I think that's something that Jimmy has. We've seen it not only in his play, but also just how he's handled everything this offseason and just his overall tenure with the 49ers, right? The 49ers have flirted with so many quarterbacks. Jimmy has done nothing but stay professional, be ready to play, and when he's healthy, has helped the 49ers win games. That's just been Jimmy, whether you agree with how great he is or not agree with how great he is. Facts are the facts. The 49ers win more when he's on the field than they do when he's not on the field. The second thing is I think that one real big progression that I've seen this offseason, along with the mobility, is no turnovers as far as interceptions, which previously he was throwing at least one a game, sometimes two a game, right? So yes, there is maybe a give and take with that because there aren't taking much risk, with the throws. So obviously with more risk comes more, interceptions as well. However, I feel like Jimmy, look, I don't know if this offense is as good as we thought it was. And I think that's probably maybe one of the reasons why Kyle Shanahan is starting Jimmy over Trey, because it looks like sometimes Jimmy's like calmness has what's kept this team kind of together, or this offense together when they're struggling, to still be able to have those a 90-yard drive at the end of the half, to be able to take the lead in a half where they were thoroughly outplayed, right? At the end of the half, unless you saw the score, there was no way you thought the 49ers were in lead of that game, or the Eagles only had 3 points. You know what I mean? And I feel like the Niners can be that type of team when Jimmy is there for whatever reason, man. You're right. He's not the strongest arm. He's not even, he has more mobility, but he's not a Justin. He's not a Jalen Hurts. He's not going to get you like first downs time after time after time. But he's going to get you that. He's going to convert on that quarterback sneak. There was one quarterback sneak where he got hit in the backfield and he still went out and got it. So there's some grit to Jimmy that I think a lot of people overlook, that I think is helping this team win. Now, can he get into a gunslinging match with the likes of Kyler Murray, who's looking like the front runner to be MVP this season, or Russell Wilson? Look, we've seen it. He's done it against Drew Brees in New Orleans. We've seen him have, late game comebacks. Now, can it be consistent? No, like we've seen that too. It can't be consistent, but I still think that there's something there to be unlocked. And it seems like Kyle Shanahan is being a little more deliberate with how he's doing things. Maybe we don't understand it. I mean, we definitely don't understand it, but there is a plan, I think, because we're seeing week to week some progression. And, but there's going to be a time where, and it's going to come up here pretty close. It could be next week against Green Bay, right? Where he needs to throw the ball and score the ball a lot more. So, I think that Jimmy gives us some qualities to help us win, but I also agree with you. I'd like to see him throw it a little bit more. I talked about it. I think on Jack's show, or maybe with you, that how Tampa Bay worked their season last season, where they didn't look like the best team in the league because they were working out the kinks in that offense. And now you look at, they won the Super Bowl. Now you look at them and they look like they're, on their way to win another one. I don't know if that's what this is happening right now, because we're not seeing Jimmy throw the ball down the field, which is what I think we need to start working on.
Yeah, I don't think that's Jimmy's game, right? Like, it's never been Jimmy's game. He can throw down the field over the middle, 15 yards and in. If he's got a wide open receiver, he's going to hit it. He can do that. And they've done that. If you look at his throw charts, I mean, they have actually done that. It's
Mm-hmm.
just the fact that he's never going to be able to throw outside the numbers past 10 yards with any consistency. He's 8 years in. He's never been able to do it. It's just not ever going to be a part of his game. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you can't win with Jimmy, but things have to be perfect around Jimmy. And this game was a great example of that, because if you look at that first quarter, they had no first downs. If Jimmy is behind the chains, third down and longs, third down and 8+, that's it. Like he's not going to hit a big play when he's being pressured. That's just not what he's going to do on a regular basis. Now, Shanahan offenses are number one since 2018 on 3rd and 6+, but 3rd and 6+ versus 3rd and 8+ are two different things. And that's a Shanahan offense thing. Jimmy G on 3rd and 6+ ranks number one in the NFL. Number three in the NFL was either number 3 or 4 was Mullins, and number 8 was Beathard. So that's a Shanahan offense thing. It's not a Jimmy G thing.
Right.
Um, but again, this game right here, I never expected to be a high scoring game. I didn't think the 49ers could put up a lot of points. I felt like the Eagles could compress their scoring. They did just that. So I'm not panicked from a standpoint that this offense can't be more explosive. Styles make matchups. I just think if it comes down to an all out shootout with some of those guys I mentioned, I don't see a way that Jimmy gets it done. It just is what it is.
Yeah, and we could talk. That has nobody could say with confidence that it can be done. Right? We have to just wait and see what Kyle Shanahan dials up, because clearly this dink and this right now what we saw against the Eagles was complementary football, in the sense that they were able to play the style of offense that they were able to play because of what the defense was doing on that side. If the defense isn't, if Eagles were scoring a bunch of points, the offense that we saw isn't going to win a game. So is there another gear that we could see? Yeah, I mean, that running game has to be a lot better. And let's kind of go over, just overall the offense overall. For me, I thought that the running game wasn't where it needed to be. I thought the offensive line got beat up by the Eagles defensive line. And let me say this, I think a lot of people underrate the Eagles defensive line. We're not going to be running into that many defensive lines like the Eagles defensive line. They're really, really good. They don't have big name superstars that people know about, but everybody on that defensive line is a disruptor. And they beat up this offensive line, which was something that I didn't expect. But talk a little bit about, outside of Jimmy, just all the other offensive pieces that you saw.
Yeah, I thought this would be a breakout game for George Kittle. It was anything but that.
Mm-hmm.
And, the offense it's predicated on one player right now, and that's Deebo Samuel. It seems like the run game was a little bit stagnant. We'll talk about that when we get to coaching, because I believe it has to do with that more than it has to do with the players. But you're right. This defensive line is extremely stout, right? Fletcher Cox, for my money, is probably the third best interior player in all of the NFL. Hargraves is an absolute beast. I mean, we saw him play after play, blowing
Mm-hmm.
up the 49ers in the backfield, including, play one. So, there's a lot of skill on that defensive line. So, with that being said, yeah, the offense was pretty stagnant. Luckily, the defense was not, and it allowed them to win this game. They did just enough. Next week is the week for me, because I said all preseason long that this offense would be able to run the ball at will against the Green Bay Packers. I thought that would be their coming out party, not week 1 or week 2. And I figured that would be the coming out party for this offense. So let's see it. If next week they look similar to what they look this week, I'll be extremely worried.
Yeah. And I guess the one piece of like saving grace is, there's so many pieces that have been shuffled in, especially in the running game with, Elijah Mitchell now being the starter, Hasty now getting more run. Initially it was supposed to be Mostert and Sermon that were getting most of the play with, the first team and all that kind of stuff. This offense hasn't been together in game situations. This is like, the first 2 games, right? So they are going to get better. And I was a little disappointed in the offensive line, man. I really thought that, they were going to be able to be dominant, and instead it was the complete opposite. They got dominated, and I hope that we don't come up against too many defensive lines like the Eagles, because it doesn't seem like we're going to be able to hold up too much. All the strength that we saw on the offensive line last week wasn't there this week.
And excuse me, I think I said Vernon Hargraves. I meant
Hassan.
Javon Hargrave. Yeah. So, hey, but either way, absolute savage, that defensive line. And they lost Graham in that game.
Yeah,
And I
early
think
in the
that was a
game.
big turning point because Graham took away the ability for them to just send a flat four and play coverage behind that. And that's when the offense really started to open up on third down for the 49ers. They had to start showing blitz or blitzing a lot more to even try to get pressure. If they didn't blitz, they couldn't get any pressure on the 49ers. That's when the game really took a turn. Graham, it sounds like, is out for the season. That's a huge loss for that Eagles
Wow,
team.
I didn't hear that. Man, prayers up, man. It's tough seeing all of these season-ending injuries. That's tough, really tough. All right, well, let's move to the other side of the ball. We'll go generic first. Overall defense. Talk to me about it. This obviously was the shining star of the game. Talk to me about what you saw and how you thought they played overall.
Yeah, I thought, first of all, I thought the game was called brilliantly. I think the defense did exactly what the Eagles did last week, right? You look at what the Eagles did to the Falcons, and that game was rather close right before the end of the first half. It was 7-6. The Falcons multiple times put the Eagles back against the wall, and every time they got within the 10, the Eagles came through. And if you look at the way the defense played, Fred Warner came through big in some huge spots when they had their back up against the wall. It just seemed like the big players on this team made big plays at the right moments. They
Right.
they weren't necessarily the guy that you saw flashing play in and play out, but when they needed to play, whether it was Tart or Ward or Warner or whoever, those big name players, Kinlaw, they made plays when you needed those plays to be made. Bosa was another one. It was a perfect symphony of, hey, we need a big play. All pro go make a big play, and that's what we saw all game, and it was fantastic to see. They could have easily mailed it in on the 91-yard pass when they had the Eagles backed up on the 1-yard line. The fact that they gave up 0 points on that was absolutely incredible.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that you have to give credit under Shanahan's tenure is these guys fight, right?
Yeah.
They don't ever give up, and that's one thing that Shanahan has instilled in these guys. Whether they have their third string, everything out there, they're fighting as hard as they can, and they don't give up anything easy without fighting for every second of it. There's a couple of things. So there's some. I'm not actually as. I think the defense played well, but I also think there's a lot of room for improvement. But there are some things that improved thoroughly. So let's talk about that stuff first. I thought Fred Warner finally showed out. He was non-existent in the first game. He made some big plays early on in that game, and his coverage ability, I think, changed what the Eagles were trying to do on certain plays and really got to Jalen Hurd and made him make some decisions that he didn't want to make because he saw, Fred Warner out there. The communication between the safeties and the corners got way better. They gave up a touchdown, Verrett, and I think it was Ward, where Hawkinson ended up getting the touchdown because they did a cross route. And instead of Verrett staying outside, he went inside. And, it ended up like messing up what Ward was supposed to do. Hawkinson ended up walking in for a score. The same type of play was run this time, but Lenore stayed outside. Jimmy Ward, stayed inside and made that great play. Could have been a momentum shifter if it was a completion, and Ward played it perfectly. No pass interference, turned his head around, disrupted the ball, and it was just an incompletion. All of that was very, very, very great to see, because those were our biggest questions: was are we going to be able to tackle? Are the secondary going to hold up? And yes on both of those. this defensive line still hasn't showed me that they're going to be as dominant as we expected them to be. Right? Last week we got 3 sacks. This week we got 2 sacks. Clearly, Jalen Hurts is a different beast. He's mobile, so to get him down is a little bit harder. But I don't know. Did you feel like the defensive line dominated this game?
No, but also I didn't expect him to. After watching the Eagles last week, I knew what it was. Jalen Hurts last week had, I think, 35 attempts. 15 were at or behind the line of scrimmage. Another 7 were between 1 and 5 yards down the field. And most of those, actually, every single one of them was outside of the hashes. He didn't even attempt a pass in between the hashes all game last week. That told me that they were going to have a quick hit offense. And that worked perfect against the 49ers, is why I thought it would be a tight game, because I felt like the 49ers would struggle. The strength is supposed to be the defensive line. The defensive line I knew would not be able to get after the quarterback at a high rate because they just get rid of the ball way too quickly and they nullify that defensive line. So, no, I don't think they were dominant, but I do think that they played well when they needed to play well in spots. And I think that run defense was really where they showed up early on. And that was enough for them to ultimately win that game. But as far as a pass rush, the things that we look for in sacks, no, they didn't look dominant. But I think that was more because of the way that the Eagles play more than it is because the 49ers defensive line is not a good defensive line.
Green Eye Irvin says, y'all expect D-line to get 10 sacks a game. That's not the case at all. No. Green Eye or Irvin. I really just look. I think that the defensive line is supposed to do what the defensive line is supposed to do. With the mobile quarterback, you're supposed to keep your gap integrity and not let him break containment. And I think they let him do that too much. If they kept him in the pocket, I think they do get a few more sacks. They couldn't keep him in the pocket, which is what the biggest Achilles heel for the 49ers defense has been. And Jalen Hurts ate us up when it came to scrambling, when the defense pretty much shut down all of his options, and he was able to go get big yardage with his feet. I think that the defensive line needs to get better, and I expect, one name I didn't hear at all this game was Samson Ebukam, and I expected to hear his name a lot because we brought him in just to help us out with these mobile quarterbacks, and unfortunately, gap integrity wasn't there. He was still able to break containment. And yeah, I expect this defensive line to be able to get about 5 sacks a game, no matter who the quarterback is, just based off of the overall talent and what they're able to do. And we haven't hit 5 yet. The first quarter in Detroit, it was against Goff. Goff isn't a mobile quarterback. We weren't able to get him down as often as we needed to. But we're waiting for the defensive line to be super dominant. It still hasn't gotten to that point. And, to Green Eye Irvin's point, we don't have to have the same defensive line compared to 2019. Mobile QB bring a different dynamic compared to a pocket QB. It's absolutely correct. Problem is we play against a lot of mobile QBs in our division. And so if we can't contain those guys, we can't take 4 losses in our division and expect to make the playoffs. So we have to figure something out there. Clearly, we still got the victory here, so that's positive. And overall, you can't. I'm being picky about the defense. Overall, I'd still grade them out an A, just because of how many points they were able to save off of the board. Javon Kinlaw with the field goal block, that was huge. I don't know. I don't think any of these coaches are going to be trying to go for it on 4th down in the red zone anymore, because both Detroit and Philly both got shut down. So I expect teams to start kicking field goals against this defense, because the bend don't break definitely is, I guess, the mantra, and they're doing it really, really well and executing it to perfection.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Eagles easily could have had and should have had 10 more points, and that they didn't have, and that's the difference in the game right there. The blocked field goal, and then also the no points after the 91-yard gain. That was so clutch.
Right. So one of the biggest question marks going in was the secondary. So we finally got to see what the secondary looks like with Norman and Lenoir. I mean, you were saying it all up and down your tweets, man. Lenoir is that dude, man. I think we got a stud. We got a star. future star, I think, future star cornerback for the 49ers for a long time, right? Um, but looking at how the secondary played, and we could bring in the DBs and the safeties. Do you think that the secondary is good enough to go against some of the high power offenses that we're gonna meet, not only in our division but outside the division as well?
Yeah, I mean the secondary is good enough if the defensive line is better, right? If the defensive line is who we expect this defensive line to be, then yes, the secondary is good enough to complement it. Also, let's not forget that Mosley is still going to come back, and I believe that Mosley is clearly the second best corner on this team. So, yeah, if Lenore and Mosley are the guys, I think that they can be good enough. Lenore, I get it. I get he gave up the 91-yard play, and pretty much everybody can call that out. But the rest of the game, he was damn near perfect. I mean, he had a crossing route where Hertz broke containment early in that game, and he was right there to stop that. He had another one where Hertz broke containment, and it ended up being tipped up. It was later in the game, ended up being tipped up, and Sanders caught it and then was hit and dropped the ball. But that was a great play by him. I mean, really, all game he played so damn good. He had the other one. It was the deep play with Lenore and Smith, and Tart was there, and he came up from behind and hit the ball away. I think Lenore played fantastic, and this secondary wasn't. I mean, it was tested deep, right? But it wasn't tested deep in a sense that it's going to be tested by the likes of maybe Green Bay, Seattle, and Arizona the next few weeks, right? It was just there was a couple deep shots taken, but overall, I thought the secondary this game, their job was to funnel any of the outside plays back into the linebackers and allow them to make plays and just hold containment on the edges as the passing game tries to hit those outside routes. And I think they did a fantastic job of that. But yes, long story or long answer, but yes, the secondary is good enough.
Yeah, and I mean, Norman unfortunately had his first two, throws that went his way are pass interference. One of
I
them
thought
was a
those were
little
ticky
bit,
tack too, man.
yeah, one of them was definitely a little bit ticky tack. One of them, he definitely, held. I mean, at least maybe affected his ability to turn or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, after those two plays, you didn't really hear Josh Norman's name, which is a good thing. For some reason, they kept trying to go at Lenore, even though he was, not basically being, pretty steadfast there, other than the one deep play that he got beat for. But the thing that really impresses me about Lenore is he's not necessarily this overly athletic corner, but his positioning is phenomenal. The way that he used that sideline against Devontae, like he's using all of his tools. Seems like a very cerebral player. And we had a cornerback that was really cerebral on our team that, this secondary has missed. And, Richard Sherman. And it seems like Lenore is that same type of cerebral type player. And I think that's going to be key for us, man. I think if, obviously Verrett's out, but when Mosley comes in, I think we're still too deep with our corners. And, if Verrett was here, man, we'd be three deep. And that would be a really, really good situation to be in. But I think next week will be a good test. Obviously, Devontae Adams is a much better receiver than any of the receivers that they have faced up until this point. However, hopefully Mosley comes back, and then all of a sudden this defense is a totally different animal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And time's going to tell. Like I said, with much better receivers coming up on the docket, these guys are going to get tested a lot more than they did this week. But Lenore is one I'm not worried about. Yes, he's going to give up plays. Every corner does. He's still a rookie, a fifth-round pick at that. But Lenore, to me, looks like he has all the skill sets, all the tools. He was a player I was extremely excited about. You can check the Twitter timeline as soon as they drafted him. I reacted like they just drafted Trey Lance. I was that excited about it. So I know how good of a player he is. I watched him a lot at Oregon. He's a very, very good player, and I think more often than not, he's going to make the right play, and I'm very happy he's on this 49ers team because right now, if Ambry Thomas was the one that they had to rely on, they would be in a lot of trouble. So I'm glad that he's not.
Yeah, whoever drafts our 5th round and below draft picks
Yeah.
needs a raise,
Yeah.
because it seems like those guys are really carrying the team right now.
Well, and I'll say this too. I mean, I've got to imagine that some of those later guys are the ones that the scouts have autonomy to pick, right? Those are the
Yeah,
ones that they've scouted all year. I feel like early in the draft, that's when a Shanahan falls in love with someone. He's like, I got to have this guy, go get him. That hasn't worked clearly because they do not hit very often in those first 3 rounds. So whoever's making those late picks, let them make the early picks, please.
right. I agree, man. I agree, especially with the running back. I wrote an article for SI, talking about how there's never been a top rushing attack without a top three, like a running back, with that was drafted in the top 3 rounds that, was in it. I think the 49ers could just stop drafting. Don't draft a running back till after the 5th round, because they're, I think his name is it Bobby Turner, or I forget the guy that the running back scout for the 49ers, but he does
Yeah,
a
I don't
phenomenal
know.
job finding these guys that are really, late round draft picks like Elijah Mitchell, or, undrafted people, like, that he's found, like,
Hasty.
Hasty, as well as back in the day. I'm forgetting his name right now. Abrita. So yeah, keep doing that. I know this is something you wanted to talk about, my man. You've been kind of like hedging it for every other question. So let's get into it. Talk about the coaching. Let's go positive first, man. Let's start with the positives. I know you were really high on what, D'Amico Ryans did this game. So let's talk about that before we get into your feelings about Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, 1000%. We talked last week. We talked about D'Amico Ryans, how this is his first year. And I said it not only on this show, but I said it all week in Twitter spaces and what have you, that you cannot expect a rookie head coach to make all of the adjustments that need to be made. And Grant made a really, really good analogy when I did the show with him on Wednesday. He said, D'Amico can drive the car, but if the car breaks down, can he also be the mechanic? And that's where Saleh got really good. If players were missing to where it didn't fit the scheme that he wanted to run, he was able to make those adjustments. Well, can D'Amico Ryans be that guy? And I said, it's not fair to expect him to be that guy, at least not this early in. I mean, we're talking about year one. This is now only 2 games in, but oh my gosh, talk about adjustments. First of all, the wide 9 was non-existent
He
early in
like
that
just
game.
crumpled that up and threw it over his shoulder and said, like,
Yeah,
that's not in our
exactly.
playbook anymore.
Yeah. So the wide 9 was non-existent. I mean, we can talk about adjustment after adjustment. When they had their backs against the wall, I know that Fred made some big plays there, right? But he's an all-pro. He's supposed to make those plays. D'Amico Ryans put him in great spots to make those plays. He was not tricked by anything that the Eagles did. He put, I think he put the secondary in great positions. I just felt like overall, really outside of one drive, he had the perfect game plan in that game. And it was phenomenal to see adjustment after adjustment. I think it was right at the beginning of the third quarter, the very first drive for the Eagles. He put Bosa on the right tackle over there. Immediately, Bosa gets to the quarterback, gets a sack. I just felt like every adjustment he made was right on point. He was very aggressive with some of his blitzes, and they weren't BS blitzes. A lot of times I felt like when Saleh would blitz, he would show blitz and he would blitz the wrong guy, or he would just blitz up the A gaps repeatedly with the linebackers, and it was obvious what was coming. Not here. They sent blitzes from all different areas. I mean, he had corners blitzing from 10 yards back. He had safeties blitzing. He had linebackers blitzing or dropping back in coverage. I just felt like it was super exotic. I cannot say enough good things about what D'Amico Ryans did in this game. I am so excited to see what he brings the rest of the season. And, he's going to have his growing pains, but I am happy that he is our defensive coordinator because what he showed this early on is absolutely incredible.
Look, he's shown the ability to say I was wrong, right? And which is something that I know you're a big, detractor from Kyle Shanahan, that we don't really see that from him. He saw the wide 9 got gashed, and he was, he looked at the tape and he's like, look, we're not playing this anymore. I was wrong for putting it in, and it's not working for us. So let's move on to another scheme. I'm very high on him as well. I was somebody who thought he was gonna it was gonna be a seamless transition, and we won't really see a fall off from this defense. He's making me out to be a prophet right now because this defense still looks great, even though we've lost. Think about the losses we've had: Dre Greenlaw, Jason Verrett, Kinlaw is in and out. So like to still have this defense be as dominant as it is, and show like what it's capable of, I think is a testament to him. Last week, getting gashed by the running game. This week, as far as called runs for the Eagles, they were around 60 yards, which is that's great. That's good. They're gonna get some yards off of carries, but definitely I think he fixed that. Now the next phase, it seems like he's fixing one thing at a time, right? So he fixed the whole running game situation. Now the next thing is, how do we contain these mobile quarterbacks? So that's the only thing that I really saw that they didn't really make a good adjustment to, is how to contain Jalen Hurts in that pocket and not keep him from gashing us. But I have all the confidence in the world that he'll look at the tape and figure out, what needs to be done. And we'll see it next week, against Green Bay. I mean, obviously Aaron Rodgers isn't the, Jalen Hurts type mobility, but he's a pretty mobile quarterback. He likes getting out on the bootlegs and things like that to throw passes. So we shall see what he does. But I'm with you, man. A solid A for D'Amico Ryans. Would get an A plus if it wasn't for the mobile quarterback beating us. Nothing but praise for him, and for him to show this in week 2, I think is amazing, especially with the loss of some of the talent that he's gone down with and didn't even miss a beat. I think is really key.
I will say this too, for the most part, even though Hertz was able to get mobile and break the pocket, usually when that happens, the secondary blows it as well. Whatever he was doing back there, and I can't wait to put some eyes on the all-22, whatever he was doing on the back end, I mean, he was getting coverage sack after coverage sack. Now, when you get a coverage sack against a mobile quarterback, that means the mobile quarterback's probably going to pick up some yards because that's what he does. But he was still forcing Hurts to run the ball and beat him with his legs. Like Hurts was trying to keep his eyes downfield and make plays, and he couldn't do it because the back end coverage, even when the quarterback ran, they were so disciplined. They didn't come up and try to chase Hurts and put a receiver wide open for Hurts to make a big play, a gashing play. Nope. They stuck with what they needed to do. They played containment on the backside, and they trusted the linebackers and or defensive line to come up and make a play. And sometimes they did, and sometimes they didn't. But on the back end, that secondary stayed extremely disciplined in those situations, and that was very encouraging.
I completely agree. I mean, I think just offhand, there was only really that one running play where Jimmy Ward had to come in, and that's just such a stupid rule, I think, because if Jimmy doesn't make that move, easily Hurts could cut the other way and go. But that was the only play where I felt like Hurts had just nothing but running room and there wasn't anybody in his vicinity. But other than that, there was, he was being chased by somebody, or there was somebody around him to where it wasn't just a large gashing play. But I'm going to have to hear it now. Coming from a Shannon stand, but I do know, there were some question marks here. So let's hear it, Jesse. Give it to me about how your feelings about Kyle Shanahan in this game.
Yeah, that's pretty much what filled the Twitter timeline, right? It was just going in on Shanahan. Listen, here's the thing. Going into this game, I said that the Eagles and the 49ers like to do the same thing, but in different ways. What I meant by that was both teams like to stretch the field horizontally. The 49ers do it through the run game to open up the middle for the pass game. The Eagles do it through the pass game to open up the middle for the run game. The Eagles did a fantastic job of playing to their strengths. Did they win the game? No. But early on, they were in control, and that was the reason why. The 49ers didn't get a first down at all in the first quarter. They also, surprise, surprise, did not have a single horizontal run. It was a bunch of up-the-middle runs. Yes, they had some screenplays that got ate up or dropped or whatever. But if you look at those plays, they weren't going to be big anyways. I just felt like Shanahan in that first quarter coached about as bad of an offensive game plan as I've seen him in a long time. It's like, man, just play to your strengths. And so I'm tweeting this after every drive. Why are you not stretching it horizontally? What are you doing? Kyle, run the ball, get some tosses, do what you got to do, but you've got to get horizontal on these guys. You're not going to run up the middle. That is not your strength. And that is the Eagles' strength. They are going to stop you up the middle. What does he do in the second quarter? Immediately comes out, starts hitting tosses, starts getting the ball out to the edges, and first down after first down after first down, they're not having any problems moving the ball. Now, did it result in a lot of points? No. But for the rest of the game, every time they went horizontal, they were just fine. They never had a backwards play, right? Anytime they went up the middle, it was an immediate stop for nothing or a loss of yards. So I didn't understand the game plan there. And I'm going to say this as well. He got extremely lucky to end that first half because they took over 3 minutes to get 45 yards down the field. And then in 30 seconds, they go the final 50 yards to score a touchdown. And everybody's fine with that because they scored. They're up 7-3. How the hell are they up? He didn't burn any timeouts. There was a lot of wasted clock. And yes, it ended up working out for him. But Jimmy, for all the guff that I give him, that might have been the best throw I've ever seen him make between two defenders to Debo. Both of those defenders immediately were taken out of the play, and Debo was able to get a huge gain off of it. And then the next play is when he hit Jennings for the touchdown, and they scored quick. Nobody says anything about it. But I felt like he completely mismanaged that clock. It looked like they weren't even trying to score points. He was content getting out of there down 3-0. And luckily, the offense kept moving the ball. And finally, they forced his hand to say, all right, let's go for it. But it was almost too little too late. I just don't like the way that he coached for the most part in that first half. I thought the second half he was fine. Again, they were getting out to the edges. They were stretching the field horizontally. They looked much better in the second half. The second quarter looked better than the first quarter, but that clock was completely mismanaged. If I was giving a grade to Shanahan on this one, I'm giving him a C-. I just think that he could have effed off that game, and he's lucky he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit of a head scratcher. I mean, we talked about it earlier in this telecast that a lot of the wow plays or the wow moments have left this offense, and it's not that we don't have the same personnel that was doing it. Like you said, it's a very vanilla offense. I think that he made some great adjustments because that defensive line was beating up our offensive line. So getting the ball out of Jimmy's hand quicker, like you said, the tosses and things like that, I think really contained that pass rush. And then we saw a clean Jimmy, and we saw the ball move down the field more and more now that defensive line was held at bay. Yeah, I mean, overall with Kyle Shanahan, I'm just a little bit perplexed, man. I don't know what the game plan is. I don't like how he handled this offseason with the quarterbacks. I don't like how he's handling the wide receiver situation right now. It feels like there's just this cloud over the team. And maybe it's just from the fans' perspective. Maybe it's not like the actual team that feels that way. But at least from the outside looking in, it's just kind of like question mark after question mark. And obviously, none of us know football as well as Kyle Shanahan knows football and those guys. So I'm really assuming that there is a game plan there, and they're doing things for a reason. But I agree with you. I was wondering why we weren't calling any timeouts to save some time on the clock. It wasn't like the Eagles were gashing us in their offense to where we needed to keep no time on the clock for them. You know what I mean? Yeah, overall, I mean, the offense, I still haven't seen those wow moments from the offense. I thought, I don't know why we're not running like more jet sweeps. I don't know why Kittle isn't getting more, tight end screens, and he's getting more into the pass game. I don't know why Ayuk's not being used more. If we're going to go with Sherfield, why is Sherfield not being used more? If we're going to go with Sanu, why is Sanu not, why is there not a second option that's getting thrown to so that there's some diversity in our offense? Because it seems like some of these better defenses or now that there's going to be some film, it looks like there's two things. It's going to be either running with Mitchell or it's going to be a pass to Debo. So if you are looking for those two things, and maybe that's the long play, maybe it's 4D chess that Shanahan is playing, and he's wanting everybody just to focus on Debo and Mitchell, and then that's when Sermon's gonna have a big game and Kittle's gonna have a big game, and all of a sudden Ayuk is out of the doghouse and he's going and catching 10 passes for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Maybe that's what the game plan is, and then we could all be like, all right, you got it, Shanahan. But at this point, it just looks like an offense that we thought only needed a quarterback that could be a bona fide NFL starter, would be extremely dynamic. It seems like we've taken some steps back as far as the dynamicness. And I don't think it's really because Jimmy's playing bad. I mean, he's, like you said, he's doing what he needs to do. He's cleaned up the turnovers, which I think is great. He's more mobile. He seems to be throwing the ball better. I mean, so I'm with you, man. I'm a huge Shanahan. I love Kyle Shanahan. I love him as our coach, but I'm starting to see some chinks in the armor. And I think this is a real big season for him. Obviously, you can't get mad. They're 2-0, whether it looked great or it didn't look great, right, Jesse? But we got to see. We're coming into the next 3 or 4 games are against potential playoff teams. I think this run, we have to see them probably go 2-1, to really show that this team can contend and can be a playoff team, which we all expected going into this season. So I'll let you get the last word on this topic.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think over these next 3, they need to go 2-1. I mean, yes, we're happy to be 2-0, but 49er fans, when we looked at the schedule many, many months ago, everybody under the sun said that the 49ers would start 2-0. It all came down to game 3. And I said I thought the 49ers would easily start 3-0 because Green Bay were a horrible matchup for Green Bay. So nothing has happened outside of what expectation was going into the season. I felt like expectations slightly changed a little bit going into this game because of some of the injuries. People would have been okay if the 49ers had lost this game for some reason. But reality is they're 2-0. That's where they should be. That's where we all expected them to be. Now the test gets much harder. The next 3 games, can they go 2-1, go into that bye week 5-1, and show everybody that they are a force to be reckoned with? This is when the season gets real.
And we didn't really touch on it, but 504 Dimes put Trey Lance in the game. Going back to Kyle Shanahan, 2 QB system, all of a sudden in this game, absolutely no sniff of Trey Lance. Were you okay with that? What did you think of that overall?
Yeah, I mean, I said it last week. I felt like there's 3 right answers. Either play Jimmy all the way through, play Trey all the way through, and if you're going to mix and match, then you've got to put Trey out there in situations that are going to make him a better pocket passer if that's what you want him to work on. The fact that they didn't play him at all, I'm fine with that. I think that it's not what I want to do. It's not. I think Trey easily could have been 2-0 in these games. But again, if Jimmy's going to be the starter, we have to root for Jimmy. And Jimmy, if he's going to be the starter, it's only fair that he gets to be the starter. He shouldn't be going in and out of the game for Trey to come in and take over a 3rd down or what have you. It should just be his show. And until he proves that he shouldn't be the guy, just let him take all the snaps. I'm fine with that.
I agree. And I think these games are important for Jimmy as well. We look at him, he's been in the league for 8 years, but he's only really been a full-time starter for like 2.5 because of injuries, right? So all of these looks, getting through an ugly game and getting a victory, being able to come from, 0, being able to not move the ball at all to, then, still put up 17 points. I think all of that is important for Jimmy to get some confidence and as well as figure out some things for him, because if he's our starting quarterback, we need him to play at a level of a playoff team for us to be in the playoffs. And he needs as many reps. He needs to get as many looks as possible. And he needs to build that confidence in himself, because a 2.5-year starter it's pretty much like Kyler Murray, right? The only difference is Jimmy's been in the league for 8 years. And Kyler Murray's really only been in the league for 2 years. So yeah, man. Overall, it was a little bit of a solemn kind of conversation, just like last week. But the phenomenal thing is we won. We're still undefeated. Next week we have the Packers on Sunday night. So this show probably won't happen because it's going to be a little bit too late for Jesse on the East Coast. However, I'm sure I'll get him on sometime during the week so we can chop it up about the game. Anything that you want to talk about as far as your week streaming and what everybody could look forward to for you, Jesse?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, when we talk in this show, these are our instant thoughts. I haven't had a chance to go back and watch the game. Hopefully some all 22 will get out there and we'll be able to really dissect it a little bit more, give you some in-depth reasons why certain things happen. But Tuesday for the 49ers show, always do the call-in show that day. I might have a guest. We'll see what happens there. But we always end it with the call-in portion. So make sure you tune in Last Second Sports for that piece. And then, the rest of the week, I'll be with Grant and Jack and who knows where. So, but yes, the 49ers won. As a fan, you definitely should feel a lot better about this week and where the team is today versus where they were last week, because they didn't have those injuries that absolutely killed them. And at the same time, we got some of the questions answered, at least for now, about the secondary. They're going to be okay. This defense is going to be just fine. And D'Amico Ryans, at least for now, has shown that he's the truth as far as a play caller and an in-game and post-game adjuster. And those are all positive things. So next week, I expect that to actually be the biggest win as far as point margin all season long for at least the first 3 weeks. I really think that Green Bay has nothing for the San Francisco 49ers. I think the 49ers win that game going away. So listen, if you were nervous the first 2 games, you felt those were nail biters. I do not expect that in week 3. I don't think Green Bay can hang with the 49ers. And that's where I think that 49ers offense is set to explode. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And the one thing I really want to promote, I'll post up my schedule. It's pretty standard at this point, but we started this new call-in show immediately after the 49ers games. It was a little bit last minute, so we weren't able to really promote it that well. But the minute that the game is done, we're going live on this channel, and it's really going to be based around you guys, for you guys to call in, really sound off about how you feel. You guys do, amazing things to come in and watch us talk about the 49ers. Want to give you guys an opportunity to do that as well. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. That is going to be happening every week right after the 49ers are done playing. We're going to go for about 45 minutes to an hour, get all of your guys' calls so you guys can sound off about the game. And instead of just typing it into the comment section, you can say it live for everybody to hear on the channel. So appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Hopefully everybody had a very fun Sunday of football. A lot of great games, a lot of nail biters, right, Jesse?
Hey, Seattle lost too. You should be really happy. Anytime Seattle loses and the 49er wins, that's about as good of a week as you can have.
Right. Dude,
and
it's
Seattle,
so close to Arizona losing too.
They should have lost that game to the Vikings. Yeah. By the way, the Vikings were missing pretty much every good defensive starter they had. So that was encouraging to see that Vikings offense was able to put up as many points as they did also on Arizona. So Arizona is very beatable. The Rams actually were in a tight one against the Colts. And I thought that the Seahawks were going to eke that one out. They got extremely lucky on that. What was it? Their first drive in overtime, their only drive in overtime. Russell Wilson, absolutely, that should have been a safety game over. They got bailed out, and luckily the Titans were able to get the ball back, go kick a game-winning field goal. So either way, Seattle lost, 49ers win. That's an amazing week.
For sure. And look, this is going to be a tight NFC West. So we talked about it last week. These type of games are games that we need to get. And the Green Bay game is going to be another one that we need to get, because the Seattle game, the Arizona games, those ones are a 50-50 chance, right? These games that we know we could dominate, we need to get. So far, everything's on track. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in again. Please like, subscribe, share. It really helps out the YouTube analytics and helps us grow our channel. Last Second Sports for Jesse. If you haven't gone onto his channel to like, subscribe, and share, please do that as well. We love you guys in the comments. Thank you so much for being interactive with us. And guys, have a beautiful night. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll see you guys all next week.